A little while back, Samsung launched two phones exclusive to China, the Galaxy C5 and the Galaxy C7. While Sundar reviewed the C5 last week, it's now the larger C7's turn. I know these phones are probably not going to launch in India, but I find it kind of interesting to check what brands are up to in other markets. If this is your first time here, or in case you just can't remember, my name's Ash, this is C4E Tech, and you're watching our full review of the Samsung Galaxy C7. Let's get started. Let's start with the build and design. In my unboxing, a lot of you guys echoed my views on the fact that this phone looks too similar to the OnePlus 3. But there were a few who pointed out that the C7 was actually announced a month before the OnePlus 3. Now, regardless of the inspiration, the C7 does feel very premium. It's sleek, just 6.8mm thick and weighs in at under 170 grams. I like how it feels in hand. While not very friendly for single-handed usage, it definitely feels solid. And Samsung's kept the C7 relatively compact for a phone with a display this size. Talking about the display, the C7 sports a 5.7-inch Super AMOLED display. The resolution is Full HD, meaning a pixel density of almost 400 pixels per inch. That's quite sharp, and being an AMOLED display, the blacks are deep, meaning excellent contrast. The viewing angles are great, colors are a little punchy. Samsung does let you choose more color accurate options if that's what you want. There is no mention of Gorilla Glass, but there is some sort of protective layer that also has an oleophobic coating on top because the C7 didn't really pick up any fingerprints. Above this display, we have an 8-megapixel shooter, the earpiece, sensors, a notification LED, yeah, that exists, and Samsung branding. Below the display, we've got a physical home key flanked by capacitive keys that are backlit. This home key also has a fingerprint scanner built in. Unlike the one found on the cheaper J7 Prime, this is a passive scanner just like with the S7, meaning you have to press the home key to get it to scan your fingerprint. It is a little slower than scanners on phones from other manufacturers, but it's accurate and you shouldn't have any issues with it. To the bottom, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, the primary microphone, a micro USB port, and the speaker. The volume rockers are present to the left, there's a secondary noise cancelling microphone up top, and the power button along with a tray sits to the right. This tray can take either two SIM cards or a SIM and a micro SD card. Now the looks and the design's fine, but what's underneath? With the C7, Samsung's gone with the new Snapdragon 625 chip. Do note that the 625 chip, just like the Snapdragon 820, is built on the 14nm manufacturing process. What does that mean? That means the C7, just like the Asus Zenfone 3, is extremely power efficient. With my regular kind of usage that involves, I know a lot of you guys know this, 2 to 3 hours of calls, another 3 to 4 hours of music via Bluetooth, an hour or so of streaming video, some casual gaming, Sudoku, Crossy Road, and so on, Wi-Fi and 4G on all day, push notifications from social media, mails, and with this type of usage, the 3300 mAh battery on the C7 had no issues lasting me through a day on a single charge on each of the 5 days I used this phone as my primary device. Battery life, that's good. But what about performance? Well, as far as performance goes, the Adreno 506 GPU inside fared surprisingly well. It was able to even run a few intensive games. That said, it is worth keeping in mind that this is in fact a mid-range chip. No matter how Samsung or Asus try to dress it up, the 625 is a mid-ranger. An excellent mid-ranger, but a mid-ranger nonetheless. Anyway, the audio via the downwards firing speaker was loud enough. The audio via the 3.5mm headphone jack was decent. I had no issues with cellular reception or call quality, and though this phone has support for VoLTE, it does not work with GeoVoLTE in India. And that's not really a con because this phone is not meant for India. Anyway, with that, let's move on to the cameras. And since the Galaxy C7 sports the exact same camera configuration as the C5 and performs identically, I'm gonna cut to Sundar's review, his take on the camera on the C5.
Testing this 16 megapixel rear camera required quite a lot of time. Initially, I wasn't very impressed with it. The dynamic range was very poor and the colors were washed out. There was no HDR mode too, at least that's what I thought. And then as I started shooting more pictures, I found the HDR mode tucked in here, and the pictures shot in this mode looked way better. Here are some samples. Of course, it takes a few seconds before it lets you snap another picture, but given the difference in quality, I was ready to wait. And just when I made up my mind, I realized one more thing. In HDR mode, the pictures are shot in 8 megapixels. This was kinda surprising. As in, why would you do that, Samsung? Surprising. But that said, even after realizing this fact, I found myself using the HDR mode way too often. There is a dedicated manual mode too, but you don't have control over the focus or the shutter speed. Anyway, a bit of noise creeps in when it comes to pictures taken indoors, but the color reproduction and the overall image quality stay good. The camera's low light performance is decent too. The noise levels aren't very high thanks to the presence of optical image stabilization and an f1.9 aperture. The 8 megapixel front-facing camera is capable of capturing good selfies. One con though is that the software processing tends to smoothen things more than required even with the beauty mode off. That's something common among Samsung phones. But nevertheless, it consistently captures good pictures.
And all that holds true for the C7 as well. So moving on, the Galaxy C7 runs on Android 6 Marshmallow with Samsung's custom TouchWiz UI on top. Unlike cheaper phones, Samsung's added a lot of their mainstream features here, including multi-window to run two apps side by side to enhance multitasking. The floating windows option is present, the private mode, the ultra power saving mode, and all these are present and accounted for. And they work quite well here despite just a 625 underneath. TouchWiz is quite smooth. There's support for themes to customize the look and feel of the UI if you get bored with a stock look, and apps generally open up quick and there's little lag. So this phone has a notification LED, NFC, and an auto brightness sensor. But Samsung, and of course something's gotta be omitted. So what's missing? A haptic sensor is present and actually works well with keyboards from third-party apps, but you cannot enable it for the stock keyboard or the capacitive keys. And number two, there's no gyroscope sensor. And this phone is priced at 2400 yuan, that's $360 or 24,000 Indian rupees. So is it a phone that's worth its price? Yes and no. Oh my god, how can you say yes and no? You said yes, partially at least. No, before you jump ahead, head on over to the comments and call me biased and whatnot. Hear me out. First off, there are two kinds of people. Number one, the ones who don't care about branding and are open to buying a phone from say LAKEY or Xiaomi or Lenovo or OnePlus. And then we have people who want to stick to tier 1 brands. If you are someone who falls under the first category, the Galaxy C7 makes absolutely no sense because you can buy phones, better looking phones with better cameras, with a Snapdragon 820 chip at cheaper prices. But if you do fall into the second category and want a Samsung phone or a phone from a tier 1 manufacturer in this segment, then the C7 is actually a decent offering from Samsung. And decent just means decent. It means it's not good enough to justify a good tag, and it's not bad enough to be called bad. So anyway, that's it for my 2 cents on the Galaxy C7. Do you agree with what I've had to say in this video? Head on over to the comments below, let me know your thoughts. And while you're there, you can hit that little thumbs up button if you did like the video. If you didn't, you can always vote it down. And for more videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. So if you do want to pick a C7 up, imported phones are available on eBay, I guess, in India, or you can import it from ebay.com. I'll leave links to both in the description. So thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, this is Ash here from C4E Tech, signing off. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye now.